You've been running, not toward anything, but away, away from discomfort, away from stillness, away from that quiet voice inside that keeps asking, when will your life truly begin? You've been showing up for everyone else, answering their calls, carrying burdens, maintaining the peace, and somewhere in all that generous effort, all that exhausting giving, you lost the thread back to yourself. This isn't criticism, it's a reflection. There's an ancient philosophy, battle-tested and time-proven, shaped not in classrooms, but in exile, in hardship, on the front lines of history. And it speaks directly to this moment in your life. Stoicism. At its core lies a truth so simple, it almost feels radical. You can only control what is yours to control. Your mind, your choices, your character, nothing else. Focus on yourself, not out of pride, not out of disregard for others, but because nothing, no relationship, no contribution, no achievement, can stand on a hollow foundation. The Stoics understood this. Marcus Aurelius, ruler of the mightiest empire on earth, still made time each morning to tend to his inner life first. Epictetus, born into slavery, found freedom that no chain could touch because he turned inward. And so can you. It is never too late to turn back toward yourself. That journey begins now. If these words resonate with you, if you feel a spark, type, "I choose me" below. Make it the first choice of this new chapter. Think back to the last time you truly felt like yourself. Not performing, not managing, not surviving, but simply present, quiet, fully alive in your own life. For some, that memory takes a moment to appear. For others, it may seem lost entirely. That gap between who you are and who you've been pretending to be is where exhaustion lives. We live in a world that rewards self-erasure. From childhood, we're taught that being good means giving more, asking less, and neglecting our own needs. The loudest voice in the room isn't always the right one. Selflessness is celebrated. Boundaries are often frowned upon. Saying no is treated like a moral failure. And so, we learn very efficiently to abandon ourselves for the comfort of everyone else. The result? You become a version of yourself that nobody designed, that nobody even asked for. A scattered, depleted person, running on obligation rather than purpose. Seneca noticed this pattern over 2,000 years ago and called it out with ruthless honesty. He wrote about people busy doing nothing, endlessly active but never truly productive, filling their days with the demands of others, while their own inner life quietly crumbles. He wasn't describing ancient Romans. He was describing you. He was describing all of us. Here's what nobody tells you when you're in the middle of it. The people you're running yourself ragged for don't actually need a hollowed-out version of you. Your children, your partner, your friends, your colleagues, they need the real you, the grounded, present, capable version. And that version can only exist if you've first done the work of caring for yourself. The scattered life feels noble from the inside. It masquerades as devotion, but at its root, there's often something less comfortable, a fear of sitting with yourself, of confronting what you truly want, of taking ownership of your own direction. It's far easier to stay busy with other people's lives than to face the quiet, demanding work of building your own. This is what the Stoics called living according to others, rather than according to reason and nature. And they considered it one of the most dangerous ways a human being could spend their days. The first step towards something better is simply recognizing where you are. And if any part of this feels familiar, you're already halfway there. Marcus Aurelius wasn't born a philosopher. He was born an emperor, which in the ancient world meant a life defined entirely by external demands. The empire needed decisions. The armies needed leadership. The Senate needed careful management. The citizens needed guidance. Every single day of his life, on the surface, was devoted to everyone else. And yet, every single morning, before the empire could demand him, Marcus sat down and wrote to himself, not for posterity, not for publication. These private reflections, what we now call the meditations, were never meant for anyone else's eyes. They were the practice of a man who understood, with uncommon clarity, that if he did not tend to his own mind first, he had nothing genuine to offer the world. He wrote about perception, about patience, about the difference between what disturbed him and what he chose to allow to disturb him. He was, in essence, doing what we might today call therapy, except his therapist was Stoic philosophy, and his sessions began at sunrise. This is the Stoic mirror. It doesn't show your face. It shows your patterns. Epictetus, who came from the opposite end of the social spectrum, born into literal slavery, arrived at the same conclusion through a different path. His master once twisted his leg. As a demonstration of control, Epictetus simply said, "You will break it." The leg was broken. Epictetus said, "Did I not tell you so?" No rage, no collapse, because Epictetus had long ago drawn a line between what was his and what was not. His body, not his. His freedom of movement, not his. His mind, his values, his response to suffering. Entirely his, untouchable. That is the foundation Stoicism offers you. Not a detached, emotionless existence. Not indifference toward the people you love, but an absolute clarity about where your real domain begins and ends. Because here's the truth the Stoics kept returning to. When you live entirely, in reaction to the external world, to other people's moods, opinions, needs, and crises, you are not truly living your own life. You are living 1,000 fragments of everyone else's. The mirror shows you this. And once you see it clearly, it becomes very difficult to look away. There is a phrase that appears quietly in Marcus Aurelius's writings, one that the philosopher Pierre Hadot later named and made famous: the inner citadel. It refers to that inviolable space inside you, the place no external force can truly reach, the seat of your judgment, your values, your response to the world. The Stoics believed this was the most valuable real estate in the universe, and most people have never once visited it. Reclaiming that space is not a dramatic, overnight transformation. It is a practice, and it begins with a deceptively difficult act: paying attention to yourself, not the performance of yourself, not the version that exists in other people's eyes, but the actual interior you, what you genuinely think, what you truly want, what genuinely disturbs your peace. Most people spend their whole lives just one step removed from this. They know their opinions about politics, about their neighbors, about the latest news. But ask them what they actually value, what kind of person they are striving to become, what they want their days to feel like, and they fall silent. This is not ignorance. It is the natural result of never being taught to look inward. The Stoic practice of prosoke, self-attention, was considered foundational above anything else. Watch yourself, not with judgment, but with the calm, objective observation of a scientist. Notice when you react versus when you respond. Notice what drains you and what restores you. Notice whose voice is guiding your choices. Is it truly yours or an inherited script from someone else's expectations? This simple act of noticing is the first step toward reclaiming yourself. From there, the practice deepens. The Stoics used a technique we might call negative visualization, not imagining catastrophe, but simply imagining the absence of what you take for granted. Your health, your clarity, your time. Not to be morbid, but to awaken. When you remember that your attention is finite and that your days are not guaranteed, it becomes far harder to justify spending them entirely in service of everyone else's agenda. There is also the discipline of the evening review, something Marcus Aurelius practiced, and Seneca wrote about in detail. At the day's end, ask yourself, what did I do well? What pulled me away from my best self? Not to punish yourself, but to recalibrate, to show up differently tomorrow. The inner citadel is not built in a weekend. It is built every day. You choose to turn inward rather than scatter outward. You lay another stone, and over time, that structure becomes something no external storm can easily destroy. Let's address what stops most people before they even begin. Guilt. If you were raised in a culture, a family, or a faith tradition that equated self-focus with selfishness, then the idea of putting yourself first will feel like a moral transgression. There will be a voice, probably a very familiar one, that says, "Who are you to prioritize yourself? Other people have real problems. Other people need you." That voice is not wisdom. It is conditioning, and it is costing you everything. Here is what Stoic philosophy makes unambiguously clear. You are not separate from the people you love and serve. You are connected to them, which is precisely why your own condition matters so much. A depleted parent cannot be fully present. A burned-out leader cannot make clear decisions. A person running on anxiety and self-neglect cannot offer anyone real stability, real patience, or real love. They can only offer performance. The Stoics had a concept called oikiosis, a recognition that we are by nature connected to others, and that our flourishing is intertwined with the flourishing of those around us. Notice what that means. Your flourishing, your health, physical, mental, spiritual, is not a luxury. It is the infrastructure on which everything else is built. This is not an abstract idea. Seneca wrote directly to his friend Latilius, "Tend to yourself first, not because others don't matter, but because the quality of everything you give is entirely determined by the quality of the person doing the giving." Think about it practically. When you are rested, not just physically, but emotionally and mentally, how do you show up when you've had time to think, to breathe, to do something that restores you? What kind of parent, partner, friend, or colleague do you become? The answer is obvious. And yet, most people treat that state as a reward to be earned, rather than a foundation to be maintained. Putting yourself first means deciding, with full philosophical conviction, that your growth is not optional, that your mental clarity deserves protection, that your dreams, your goals, your becoming, are not vanity projects, to be pursued only after everyone else is satisfied. They are your primary responsibility. The Stoics would tell you this plainly. You owe yourself the same devotion you give so freely to everyone else. That is not selfishness. It is the most honest, most courageous, most genuinely loving thing you can do. Philosophy without practice is just decoration. The Stoics were ruthlessly practical people, soldiers, statesmen, teachers. They built their wisdom to be used, not admired. So here is how you actually bring these principles into a modern life that is fast, constantly competing for your attention. The first practice is what you might call the morning ownership ritual. Before you check your phone, before the inbox, before the news feed, before anyone else's needs land in your lap, you spend 5 to 10 minutes with yourself, not scrolling, not planning for others, just sitting with the question, what kind of person am I choosing to be today? This is exactly what Marcus Aurelius was doing. In those pre-dawn writing sessions, he was claiming his mind before the world could fill it. You can do the same. The second practice is what Epictetus would recognize as the daily dichotomy. Check throughout your day. When tension, anxiety, or resentment arises, ask yourself one question. Is this within my control? Your behavior? Your effort? Your response? Yes. Other people's choices? The weather? The traffic? The economy? No. When you train yourself to redirect energy away from the uncontrollable and back toward your own choices and character, something remarkable happens. You stop leaking all that energy that was hemorrhaging into worry, comparison, and performance. It begins to consolidate inward, where it can actually do something useful. The third practice is the evening audit, Seneca's personal favorite. At the end of each day, before you sleep, you ask 3 simple questions. Where did I act from my best self today? Where did I give my power away? What will I do differently tomorrow? This is not self-punishment. It is self-authorship. You are treating your own development as seriously as you would treat any project that genuinely mattered to you. The fourth practice is perhaps the most countercultural of all, deliberate solitude. Time spent alone, walking, journaling, sitting quietly, not as an escape, but as a return. The Stoics believed that if you couldn't be alone with yourself, in peace, you had work to do. That discomfort you feel in silence is not emptiness. It is the space between who you are and who you are becoming, asking to be closed. These 4 practices, morning ownership, the dichotomy check, the evening audit, and deliberate solitude, do not require a monastery. They require only one decision, that you are worth investing in. And that decision, made daily, is the most stoic act available to you. Here is something the self-improvement world rarely says out loud. There is no perfect time to begin this work. Not at 25, not at 40, not at 63. The Stoics, who lived in a world far more brutal and far less forgiving than ours, understood this completely. The turn inward is available to you at any moment, including this one. Epictetus did not discover philosophy in youth. Zeno of Citium, the founder of Stoicism itself, had his transformation. After a shipwreck destroyed everything he had, he washed ashore with nothing, walked into a bookshop, read Socrates, and changed the course of his life. Sometimes, it takes losing what you thought you needed to discover what was always there. You may be reading this at a point in your life where things have fallen apart. A relationship, a career, a sense of self you once depended on, Or perhaps nothing dramatic has happened at all. You're simply aware, in a quiet and persistent way, that you've been living at a distance from yourself. Either of these is enough. Either of these is exactly where the work begins. Marcus Aurelius wrote the Meditations in his 50s, at the height of his worldly power, still wrestling with the same inner struggles he faced as a young man. He didn't wait until he had everything figured out. He practiced, imperfectly, repeatedly, without any guarantee of arrival. That is the invitation here. Not perfection, not a complete overhaul of your life before Monday. Just a turning, a decision, to make your own growth, the primary project of your existence. To stop waiting for external circumstances to improve before you start living fully. To understand, deeply, not just intellectually, that the life you want begins from within. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are simply standing at the beginning of a new chapter, and the page in front of you is completely blank. What you choose to write on it from this moment forward is entirely up to you. There is only one life you have been given full access to, one mind you can train, one character you can shape, one set of days, finite, unrepeatable, to work with. And the Stoics, across centuries, through hardships most of us will never face, kept arriving at the same conclusion. That is enough. A single life, tended with care, focused with honesty, and lived from the inside out, is more than enough. To matter, focusing on yourself, is not a retreat from the world. It is the only way to truly show up for it. When you are grounded, you give others something real to stand beside. When you are clear, you make decisions that ripple outward with integrity. When you are at peace with who you are becoming, you no longer need constant validation to feel like you exist. That is the gift this philosophy offers, and it has never expired. Start where you are. Start with 5 minutes of honest solitude. Start with one simple question. Am I living my life or someone else's version of it? Let that question stay with you. Let it work on you quietly. You don't need all the answers. You just need to begin. And beginning means choosing yourself, claiming your mind, committing to your own becoming. That has always been, and will always remain, entirely within your control. If something in these words shifted something inside you, if you're done living scattered and ready to return to yourself, type below, I choose me. Let that be the first stone you place in your inner citadel. And if this way of thinking resonates with you, stay connected, because this is only the beginning. Every step you take inward builds a stronger, calmer, more powerful version of you. Thank you for being here. Now, go inward.